This week on Sources, we'll take a closer look at a Partnership for National Unity's plan for governing, a program that promises direct benefits to citizens, wage increases, job creation, and sweeping measures to root out corruption and improve transparency and accountability. At the center of this week's discussion is a man who has risen through the party's ranks to become one of its most prominent voices, APNU Vice Presidential candidate Ganesh Mahipaul. Once a young community development officer, now a political heavyweight, he joins me to lay out the coalition's vision and the changes they say are necessary to reshape Guyana's future. Welcome to Sources. I'm your host, Svetlana Marshall. Tonight, we'll be taking a closer look at a Partnership for National Unity, APNU's Manifesto. To do so with me, I have the party's Vice Presidential candidate, Mr. Ganesh Mahipaul. Mr. Mahipaul, welcome to Sources.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me, Svetlana. It's a pleasure being in your company. Coming off of the busy campaign trail to facilitate this interview is indeed a privilege, and I look forward to it. As you can hear, I'm not sounding at my best, but I'm hoping to do justice. Thank you.
We're now days away from the elections. What's the response like on the ground?
Well, I must tell you, it's epic. It's very epic. People are responding very positively, especially given the fact that all of these various gossips and revelations of corruption and the likes that are happening in the People's Progressive Party camp. We're seeing this fight with money people and so on. A lot of people are communicating with us, and they appreciate the fact that our name, the PNC and the APNU, and even our partners, they are not mentioned in these kinds of revelations, and they appreciate the fact that we have been campaigning on removing corruption totally from government, and we do commit to doing that. None of us are associated to these kind of revelations, and I'm just happy about that, and more excited am I that several people whom I know once supported the People's Progressive Party. They're in communication with us about supporting us and requesting that the change happen. They keep saying that they're hoping for the change. My response is always, don't hope, go and vote for it.
Okay. We'll talk a little bit more on corruption, transparency, and accountability later on in the interview. So you'll definitely get a chance to tell us about how the party will tackle corruption. But before we do that, at just 36, you've been identified to be APNU's vice president should the party win the elections come September 1. Do you think you have what it takes to, before you answer, to hold that office, to manage that office? And when you look at your competitor, it's the vice president, Mr. Barry Jagdeo, a former president. Some say you're no match to him.
Well, people are entitled to their opinion, and a vice president is really a position that is ceremonial in its sense by the name vice president. I will not only be a vice president, I will be vice president and minister of a specific ministry, which will have to be entrusted to me by the president himself. But the naming of me as the vice president is to show, and I feel so much welcomed by the decision, to show that my maturity, my advancement in politics, my performance at the National Assembly, I think that is what would have led the presidential candidate and the team to name me as the vice presidential candidate. Yes, I'm 36, but I have 17 years of politics under my belt, and I have, as you know, 5 years in the National Assembly. I have been complimented several times for my performance in the National Assembly, and I welcome that. I have also sat on the Public Accounts Committee, where I was exposed to the runnings of government, where I was exposed to where the issues are, I have a fair degree of knowledge in terms of how I intend to advance a case in terms of fixing the issues, particularly corruption. And I also played a role when we were in government as APNU AFC in Region 3. So the dynamics of running a government, I do believe I have the ideas, I do believe I have the talent and the needs to satisfy such an office. But not only me, it will also come with the necessary technical personnel that possess the professional skills to make it happen. And it is all about a team, not singularly Ganesh or singularly Juretta or singularly Aubrey. It's a team. And once the team can define themselves, which we did in our manifesto, then we have to now go and deliver. And that is our expected result from being in government, to deliver to the people what we have committed to doing. We have some experts that are economists and other fields of expertise that helped in crafting the manifesto. And that is why we know everything that we are committing to are deliverables that we will intend to deliver.
Now, just recently on the campaign trail, the Vice President, Mr. Jack Dew, in a sense, to dismiss the political party, his opponents, said, you know, you don't have a track record, and not just you. The presidential candidate for APNU, Mr. Norton, the prime ministerial candidate, Ms. Finance, and, you know, the other members of the Partnership for National Unity and the other parties that are contesting the elections. Now, one of the issues he mentioned that the PPP is fighting, according to him, is that of racism. He has accused the APNU of fueling racism and, you know, talking a lot about, you know, using this race card. Could you address that?
Let me say, first of all, nobody in the APNU has the track record that Jack Dew has. Nobody in the APNU spent billions of dollars on a Skeldon sugar factory, and to this day it cannot produce an ounce of sugar. Nobody in the APNU dealt with a fiber optic cable running it from Brazil to Guyana, and to this day it cannot deliver faster internet access. Nobody in the APNU engaged in a Mile Falls hydro project that to this day could not deliver cheaper electricity. Nobody in the APNU ever chased their wife out of the Guyana National Stadium and later on put her out to the point where she had to say that she was abused. Nobody in the APNU ever had a Chinese man by the name of Sue in his living room or her living room negotiating for deals and cuts and so on. Nobody in the APNU has ever been accused of this degree of corruption like what is being accused or laid before the feet of Jack Dew. So nobody in the APNU has his track record. That's a fact. The APNU has a track record of delivering to the ordinary people. I keep telling people that the APNU, when in government 2015 to 2020, sweeper cleaners were getting $17,000. By the time the APNU demitted office in 2020, sweeper cleaners were getting $70,000. Minimum wage was raised from $35,000 to $70,000. Public servant salary increase went up as high as 77%. And the spreading resources across the country was something that was a focus, bridging the gap that exists between the rural and urban communities. That process began. The first roundabout was built by the coalition at Kitty Market Square. Not Kitty Market Square, sorry, Kitty Seawall area. The investment in riprap structures across the coastline to protect us from the Atlantic was done by the APNU. Wakenham, Legwan, two predominant Indo-Guyanese communities that support the PPP, outright for the first time saw asphaltic concrete roads, street lightings, and so many other things happened. Rehabilitation of several schools. Priya Manikchan Galavants and said that we did not build any secondary school, and she's correct. The reason being because when we came in 2015, all the existing secondary, primary, and nursery schools were in dilapidated conditions, not conducive to learning. Investment had to go into fixing all the ills that we have had inherited after 23 years of the People's Progressive Party. So I say again, the track record of the PPP, the APNU, does not have it and does not want it because it's a nasty track record. It's riddled with a set of falsehood and a set of investment that did not give returns to the people of Guyana. We don't want that. Our track record is based and premised on delivering to the people. We have demonstrated that and we are committed to doing the same. When it comes to racism, more in depth reference to your question, it is utterly disgraceful that they have to rely on that kind of argument when to the naked eye it is very untrue. The presidential candidate is an African Guyanese, Aubrey Norton. Over 50 years in politics, never been associated with any form of corruption, has always had a clean slate. As far as I'm concerned, he's lean, clean, and green. And he is the person that should take Guyana forward because of his genuine love for the ordinary man and how he wants to lift everybody out of the misery they're currently in. Our prime ministerial candidate is an indigenous female. An indigenous female. That's a big plus for Guyana. The first indigenous female prime minister could be Juretta Finance once the people vote for her. This is an upliftment for the indigenous people, the indigenous community that has been left behind for several decades. Here is an opportunity for them to be registered on the map, for them to claim their rightful place, for them to have the type of representation they so deserve. An indigenous prime minister, the vice presidential candidate and minister of whichever ministry Mr. Norton will find fit for me, who is an East Indian myself. I have 17 years in politics, as I said, and I think my record speaks for itself in the National Assembly and so on. We have a mixture of youthful candidates and experienced candidates. Terence Campbell is a remarkable businessman with an impeccable record. We have Roycedale Ford, Ronald Daniels, Dexter Todd. All of those are experienced lawyers. Eden Corbin is a young lawyer that has demonstrated his ability and confidence. We have Rivaldo Birbal, a young Indo-Guyanese also. We have Shanika Haynes, a young female. We have so many other candidates that have demonstrated, presented themselves with the ability to cohesively work together to deliver to the people. We have Ronald Cox in Region 1, an indigenous person. We have Tessa Finance in Region 1, an indigenous person again. We have Patrick Dixon, an Afro-Guyanese. We have Sherwin Holder. We have Sherwin Holder, obviously the chairman of the party. You know the chairman. We have Taryn. Taryn is a mixture of Portuguese person, more towards the Portuguese side, but she's a mixed person. She's in Region 2. We have Rochelle Rimple in Region 3. Region 4, we have Ricky Ramsaroop, Nima Flu Best, Coretta MacDonald. Region 5, we have Vince Roy Jordan. Region 6, we have Anil Subrim, an East Indian, Dinesh Jai Prashad, an East Indian. We have Vikash, I can't remember his title, from Region 5, an East Indian. Region 7, we have people, Region 8. I can go the
Yeah, I was about to say, are you saying that no, you're not using race?
No,
as, you know,
we cannot do that. We cannot do that. One, it is not a profitable thing to do. And secondly, our country has matured from the 1960s and 70s when the PPP used race baiting and racism to promote an agenda. Our country has matured. We are seeing greater participation of Afro-Guyanese and East Indian Guyanese living together in love and unity, and that is what we want to push. That is why in 2015, Svetlana, we had the Ministry of Social Cohesion. We have to push love, unity, and togetherness to our people, but we cannot do that at the expense of staying silent over the wrongdoings of the People's Progressive Party, over their deliberate creation of two Guyanas, one where a small group of their friends, families, and favorites benefit, and one where majority of the people, the ordinary people, are not benefiting. There is no longer this fight about racism no more in Guyana, you know. It's a classism thing now, where the PPP is creating a wealthy crew, a group of people, making them extremely wealthy, fly-by-night wealthy people, and the ordinary, hardworking people are left to the doldrum of society.
Mr. Mahipaul, you spoke earlier about some of the achievements made by APNU AFC. Then it was a coalition in government between 2015 and 2020, yet the party lost the election. I sense as a result of that loss, it's an indication that a percentage of Guyana was not satisfied with the coalition's performance. What would you say to that? And what has the party done to rebuild its image, in a sense, or strengthen its position in the country?
You know, Svetlana, the 2020 elections will go down in history for me as one of the most controversial elections ever that I have witnessed. And I have seen the 2006 elections. I have seen, not closely, but I paid attention to it. I was deeply involved in the 2011 elections. I was deeply involved in the 2015 elections, the 2016 local government, the 2018 local government, the 2020 elections, and the 2023 local government. And of all these elections I've witnessed, the 2020 is registered as the most controversial and one that I am yet to put my thoughts around in terms of accepting what many may think is something that should be accepted. It is the first time that we actually went into the ballot boxes, examined it in detail, and we saw what actually transpired at the respective polling stations. I had come from Region 3 during that year, so I was isolated to Region 3 during the 2020 election, but at the national recount, I was exposed to all the regions as we had recounted the votes. And in anything you do, Svetlana, accountability matters. And when you open a ballot box and you see that there were like 15 to 20 oaths of identity unsigned. Now you can only get an oath of identity if you came to the polling station without your ID card. So before you get the oath of identity to sign, you have to make a case that you are who you say you are. So take for Ganesh Mahipaul, for example. I show up at the polling station without my ID card. I go to the presiding officer and I say I would like to vote. I don't have my ID card. The presiding officer has a responsibility now to examine the folio and to ask me questions to get answers as to what is on the folio. You say Ganesh Mahipaul is your name. What is your middle name? I will say Aditya. That corresponds. What is your date of birth? I will say 4th of July 1989. It corresponds. What is your mother's name? What is your father's name? Where were you born? Those kind of questions are personal questions that the individual must know. And once the presiding officer can establish that yes, she or he is satisfied that is Ganesh Mahipaul, you then take Ganesh Mahipaul and let him swear. And then he signs on the oath of identity, then he gets the ballot paper. I'm saying that to say to you that the amount of anomalies, abnormalities, and irregularities in election 2020, I am yet to convince myself that we did not win those elections. I think the elections was fraudulent. I think the PPP is sitting on fraudulent elections, and they have demonstrated how fraudulent they can be with all the corruption we have seen in the last 5 years that have basically caused our country to go on the higher end of the map, to the top rather, not only because of oil production and being the fastest growing economy and earning the most per GDP, per capita, the most money per capita based on the oil production, but we are way up there also for massive corruption. We are way up there for a broken system. We are way up there for not treating our people with some degree of respect. We are way up there for not having the best delivery to our people, notwithstanding amassing all of this wealth from oil production.
So how do you still didn't answer the question with respect to strengthening its position on the ground. What was done between 2020 to 2025 to strengthen the party's position? And since you raised the issue again about corruption, let's talk about that as well. Durban Park was a project that was flagged by APNU, by the then opposition. It came up several times in the Auditor General's report about the whole secrecy surrounding that project, over $1 billion spent or garnered for it. And, We don't know. So,
all right. So in terms of strengthening our presence on the ground, what we have done is we reignited our group base. The PNC is an established political party with several groups across the country. We have reignited all of those groups. We have re-engaged. Leader Norton, over the 4 years he has been leader, has traversed the entire country from the Barima-Winey region straight to the bottom at Region 9 there to Aishalton. In fact, just today we deployed a plane to Aishalton and Anai for teams to work their way in. We have been going on the ground, making our case, reigniting our base, and spreading the message. And they're also doing the same. So in terms of us building ourselves and strengthening our people, that is how we have been handling it. In terms of corruption, I was nowhere wrong in Georgetown or at the national level during the 2015 to 2020 period when contracts were being given out for Durban Park and wherever else. I'm passionate, however, for accountability, transparency, and good governance. The first time I made a suggestion to Leader Norton concerning how I intend to address corruption, he bought into it, and it is in our manifesto. I don't believe, Svetlana, that government should single-handedly control the systems and structures. I think we ought to have stronger systems and stronger structures in place so that whomever comes as president, as ministers, as whatever political position, they must meet a structure and a system that is so strong that trying to abuse it, to gain from it through corrupt measures must be something that cannot happen. So what am I proposing? For example, let's take the National Procurement and Tender Administration.
and I was going to
Board.
ask that because recently, just this past week, we seen allegations of the procurement system being rigged to finance allegedly persons in and outside of government. We've heard allegations about gold smuggling and on the declaration. Well, this has been a trending topic. We've heard about how the allocation of lands in the country is handled. So when you address these issues, I would like you to tell me, in the mining sector, this is what we're going to do. And land is a big thing in this country. People have applied for land many, many years, over 10 years. I have a friend in Linden who was allocated land, and still today she hasn't received an agreement to sale. So how do you intend to tackle the various components of what constitute corruption in these various sectors?
So Svetlana, it requires, as we know in Guyana, we have government and opposition. Government over the last 15 years or thereabout gets 51% of the votes. Opposition gets 49%. You cannot ostracize 49% of the population and you with your 51 trying to behave as though you're 100%. I have an intention, and Leader Norton subscribes and appreciates and endorses it. There ought to be the involvement of the opposition. So when we talk about the National Procurement and Tender Administration Board, the opposition must have a seat there. When we talk about the Guyana Oil Corporation, Guyoil, the opposition must have a seat on their commission or their board. Lands and Survey Commission, the opposition must have a seat there. The Central Housing and Planning Authority, the opposition must have their representation there. Every state board and every commission in this country, the opposition must have their presence registered. The Guyana Teachers Union, not the Teachers Union, the Guyana Teaching Service Commission, sorry. All of these places, the opposition must have their. Why must they have a seat? They will be the oversight. They will be the eye that keeps the government in check. Because what is the opposition's role? The opposition's role is to expose wrongdoings. So unless they have that opportunity to expose it, how do we know that what they're saying is accurate? I am saying to you, for the 5 years the PPP has been in government, 2020 to 2025, they ostracized the opposition. They allowed themselves to be caught And that is why you see so many information are coming out now, because when they acted, they hurt their own by favoring another, when on their own believe that, you know what, I worked so hard for this party and I didn't benefit the way others are. So it's their own people that have revealed information, that have put out information into the public sphere, and has caused us to be labeled as this corrupt nation. Melly Mel in America is not getting this information by zoning in or zooming in via God-sended powers. She's obviously getting it from public servants that are hurt, because the system requires the public servants to process it. She's obviously getting it from political people that are hurt. She's obviously getting it from people who see what is happening as unfair. And I am saying that the government has to be held accountable, and it's the opposition that must hold them accountable. We are prepared in government to ensure that the opposition has a presence on all state boards and all commissions. Their involvement in budgetary preparation must be done at a consultative level. There must be a period designated for consultation, so that when this budget is passed, it is passed with the input of opposition and government. Everything you have to involve the opposition. We will not be giving Jagdeo, who will go back as opposition leader, $35 million for an entire year as his opposition leader's budget, as what he had given us for 5 years. We will be obviously financing it greater, so that he will be also given the ability to spread his wings. The point I'm making, Svetlana, we are not prepared to be secretive. We are not prepared to be like the old time ways, where you get into government, you shut out the opposition. We're prepared to be inclusive. We're prepared to push for equal representation at the level of inclusivity. And we're prepared to ensure that we move this country in such a way that whomever comes after, they cannot infiltrate, damage, or seek to destroy strong systems and strong structures that will give public servants the authority to be independent, to say no. When a public servant tells you no, they cannot do this, or no, they cannot do that, you as a politician must never abuse that privilege. Because you're a politician, they must, because at the end of the day, the public servant is held accountable for it, especially accounting officers, especially REOs. And that will also require employing people based on merit, not people with party-aligned cards, like what the People's Progressive Party has done.
Now, Mr. Mahipaul, you sat on the Public Accounts Committee. Now, that committee is intended to scrutinize the Auditor General's report and to look at how the country's finances are being spent, whether they're prudent or not, and whether there are defects and so on. But the committee has only been able to scrutinize up to 2019. So now it's almost, what, 5-6 years behind? Why is that so?
Well, I guess, Svetlana, we now understand why Mr. Figueira, who was the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, operated the way he did at the level of the Public Accounts Committee. I remember her proposing that we merge 3 years together, which would have been the 2019, 2020, and 2021 years. And the PDP was against it. Mr. Figueira sided with them, and we are where we are. It's unfortunate that we are where we are. Jermaine's decision was his. I respect it. I am a strong believer and upholder of the Constitution, which allows every individual to make their own decisions in terms of their participation in whichever political party they want to, or whichever organization they so choose to. But when you look at one's decision and you also look at their track record, and you go back to how they were operating, you can infer your own conclusion as to why we are where we are. But I know with us in government, it will be the PPP in opposition, and they will have the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee. And in government, we will fight to ensure that the Public Accounts Committee meets statutorily every Monday, as was in the past. And we will fight to also return it to its quorum requirement of any 3 members. So whomever shows up, even if it's the opposition by themselves, probably Irfan will go back as chairman, I don't know of the PAC, but whomever shows up, they will be able to constitute themselves as with a quorum and proceed with the people's business. That is how it ought to go. And we ought to get the PAC functioning effectively to be up to date with the Auditor General's report.
Oftentimes when I speak to politicians and you listen to them speak, you hear they say, well, we'll do this, we'll ensure that we're transparent and accountable. But how would a partnership-led government hold its own ministers and its own government officials accountable? And I ask this question against what is happening, what we see happening now in the press and these reports that are coming in. One, do you think that given the serious allegations that we've seen in the press recently, do you think, one, that those implicated and those who occupy the seat of government should step down? But then we are days away from the elections. But nonetheless, do you think that they should step down? And secondly, how would an APNU-led government hold its government ministers and officials accountable?
You remember Barry Ramsaran when he threatened to strip and slap Shirley in Nigeria. Ramatai was basically forced to let him go just mere days before the vote because they had to create this perception as though they care. Now let me say something to you, Svetlana. 1 in every 1 person in the PPP government is corrupt. 1 in every 1 person in the PPP government is corrupt. All of them are corrupt. That's what I'm saying to you. And they're all covering for each other. It's just happened that some of them are being exposed because information is coming out. But they all know each other's secret. It's a dirty pack of people as far as I'm concerned when it comes to corruption, when it comes to nepotism and favoritism, when it comes to the get-rich syndrome that they all suffer from at their own expense. I have said on the campaign trail, and everything I've said on the campaign trail is endorsed by Aubrey Norton, and that is what I appreciate. Any government official under the APNU that is caught or credible evidence is submitted to show that they're involved in any form of corruption will require them to demit office. We cannot be fighting to remove this stain of being the most corrupt nation right now and at the same time have people who are corrupt. And that is why you see on the APNU list of candidates, they are very new names. They're people that have been tried, tested, and proven when it comes to their track record in public life. I made reference to several names just now. And I'm saying to you, the APNU is a breath of fresh air. Aubrey Norton, after 50 plus years, no corruption to his name. That's a big plus. Aubrey Norton has been there since 1972, Svetlana. And people can't find anything on him. So what they decide to do? They decide to talk about how he dances, how he doesn't smile, how he looks, and those kind of things. That doesn't run a country. What runs a country is an educated, accomplished gentleman or lady that has an unblemished character. And that is Aubrey Compton Norton, and that's why I'm proud to be associated with him. I have already said to you, Juretta is going to lift the indigenous community and make them reach to a stage where they have never been before, which is to be equally treated like all other communities. I am firm for accountability, transparency, and good governance. And I am going to ensure that those things are done. And if I can't do it, I myself will resign. And we will not entertain or engage in anybody that attempts to engage in corrupt practices. They will have to go home. I want a better Guyana for my child. I want a better Guyana for the future generation. I want a Guyana where when my time is finished and I'm leaving or I've left in whatever way, when I die, all of us have to die, whether I decide to retire from politics, whatever, I must leave a legacy where Guyana must be a country people must be proud of where we're heading. You know, I always tell people, and I said this to some staff members when I was working at another organization, the higher you climb in life, the ladder that you climb going up, you must never forget the people you pass going up. Because those very people will have to stretch a hand out to ease the weight with which you will fall one day. And everybody has to fall. They could either fall either by death, they could fall by resignation from the position, or they could fall by termination from the position. Whichever way, when you're up there, you will fall. And when you fall, the very people that as you pass going up, they must be able to stretch out their hands and ease the weight with which you land. That's something I firmly believe in. And that is why, even though I will be the vice president of this country once the people vote for me, ascending to that office must never make me believe I'm bigger than anybody. It must make me believe, and Aubrey understands this, and Joretta, it must make me understand that I will be a servant of the people. What I'm fighting for is to become a servant of the people. And Aubrey Compton Norton will be the chief servant. And we will be servants to serve the people who are really the powerhouses in this country. We have to give back power to the people. And by way of doing that, we have to be their servant, and they have to vote for who will deliver to them by way of service.
Now let's look at the fiscal measures, some of them listed in the party's manifesto. The party said in the first 100 days in office, should it be elected, it would do the first cash transfer of $100,000 to every adult Guyanese, raise the tax threshold to $400,000, and this is set to benefit 225,000 people. It will increase the wages of public sector workers, teachers, nurses, and the disciplined forces up to 35%. What is this going to cost the Treasury?
All right, let me say first of all, the 35% is on a graduated scale. So the higher you are on the scale, the lower percentage. The lower you are on the scale, the highest you will get is probably 35%. The 400,000 income tax threshold is not going to cost the Treasury, in the sense that it is just that the revenue from income tax will be reduced.
Well, you're going to lose revenue.
Yes, but it's not going to, when you say
cost, okay, it's going giving out. Yes, I understand that.
Yes, so it is really putting more disposable income into the hands of the people, allowing them to spend more, because the more you get, the more you will spend, and the more you spend means is the more collection also, because as you purchase things, there would not be any increase in any tax. But if you broaden the spending, it is the more taxes you will be collecting, if you understand what I'm saying. So instead of you buying, let's just use a random example, instead of you buying one TV and you go and buy two, you pay the VAT on the one TV, and now you'll be paying it on the second one. So it's 2 times. So the basin of collection of taxes will be broadened, but there will be no increase in any taxes.
So that's how you're going to bring back.
That's one way of bringing back. That's one way of bringing back. Moving the minimum wage to 200,000 is again lifting the spending power of the ordinary people, and the cash transfer is what belongs to them. There are currently 3 FPSOs that are working in our waters. 2 more are one came up the other day.
Yes.
Right now we're producing 900,000
That's the
barrels
capacity
of oil per day. That means that we're producing more oil than any other country per capita. Our income stream generated from oil is going to significantly increase. We diversify in terms of increasing agriculture in all 10 of our administrative regions. We broaden the scope of investment. We have more business enterprises engaged in, in activities, manufacturing, value-added products. All of this is going to stabilize us greater, increase our ability to earn, and most of all is the reduction of corruption to the point of elimination. We believe that 30 cents of every dollar is lost via corruption. We believe that we're not getting value for money because of the high level of corruption in this country. And I am saying to you that with structures and systems that are strong and resilient, with a diversified economy, with investment from the business community, with the whole aspect of ensuring that you get value from the system, the broadened base of treating people equitably, and the collection of oil resource, we will have the resources to invest in this generation. At the same time, it will allow us to save 25% of the oil wealth for the future generation. Prudent financial management is what is very, very critical in all of this. and at the same time not forsaking your people, like what is happening right now. This government never supported cash grant, the PPP. You remember Jagdeo saying that how it's not feasible. And we in the opposition kept pushing because they had gotten a windfall of $60 billion. And that's how the 100,000 came about. These people don't care about us, Svetlana. A minister gets $1.8 million a month. 800,000 is really the allowances. $1 million on average. I'm not going to say 1,080,000. Put it like this: $1 million they get a month, and a sweeper cleaner earns $100,000. You know what these people do? They give 10% across the board salary increase. So if that sweeper cleaner gets 10% on her $100,000, she's getting $10,000 more on her salary. And they are taking 10% too on the $1 million. And what they're getting $100,000 more on their salary. So this government, the PPP government, for the 5 years, they have broadened the gap that exists between the rich and the poor. They have elevated themselves to make themselves become richer. And the people at the bottom, they have become poorer. Why is it that they could not have taken 1% salary increase on their $1 million, which would have given them an equivalent to 10,000 as the person at the bottom who got 10% with the equivalent of $10,000? It all calls for treating people equitably, not making yourself richer whilst you just throw crumbs at the ordinary people.
On this issue of salary, though, one could argue that when in government, the APNU AFC increased the salaries of ministers by 50%.
We ought to clarify that.
Clarify, please.
David Granger, as president in 2015 to 2020, got no increase. The same salary that Ramatar got in 2015, May, or before May, April, the same salary that Ramatar left office with in April of 2015, Granger kept on till 2020, never touched and got an increase on it. Nagamutu got a 13 or 14% increase because his salary in 2015 was lower than the AG's salary. So he got, I think it's 12%, 12.5%, that took him above the AG and made him the second highest paid person. The AG ended up getting, I think, 2.5% to carry him up a little bit above so the senior ministers got 50%. The senior ministers got 50%, the junior ministers, I think, were 8%, and the permanent secretaries, I think they got 6%. So it was done in a scale way. Not everybody got 50%. And every parliamentarian got 50% increase, which includes Jagdeo, includes all of them who were MPs on the PPP side. They got 50% increase also. They said that they're not accepting the money, that they will put it into a special account and they will do community service with it, philanthropy. Did they do that? No, because there's no evidence to show it. These very people who criticized the 50% increase, as they claim for everybody, came into government in 2020, accepted the salary as it is, with that very number that they claim. At that time, a senior minister was receiving $847,000 as the salary. That is what they left office with in 2020. When they made that one-time increase in 2015, there was no other increase. The same salary went straight through to 2020. And this government, the PPP, came into office with that same salary that they claim they didn't like because it's so high, kept it, and plus added on 39.5% on that very salary. Right now, Irfan Ali's salary is about $2 million when Granger left it as $1 A senior minister was in 2020 $800,000. Now a senior minister's salary is about $1.3 million with the additional allowances that carries it extremely high, close to $2 million. So the PPP is not fit to talk about increase in salaries for ministers because right now they are perhaps the highest paid. And I want to push a case to Aubrey, our presidential candidate, that I'm still working out in my head, that I don't think no APNU minister of government and president should get any increase for the 5 years. because that money is a lot of money and sufficient for them to live on.
All right.
They're already getting fuel covered by the state. They're already getting a vehicle covered by the state. Security and the likes and all of these other prags covered by the state. So all I'm saying is, but it could work out also that you wouldn't want a situation where no increase is given to them and then the public servant increase comes and surpass their total.
I understand.
So that also has to be considered. But the graduated scale method, I think, is a fantastic method. The higher you are on the scale, the smaller percentage. The lower you are on the scale, the higher percentage.
All right, let's go back to the fiscal measures now that you've clarified that increase that took place in 2015. You know, these incentives that usually come, these financial measures, when they take effect, what you see is prices going up on the market. You know, food prices extremely high right now. How would you tackle, you know, address cost of living, the high cost of living, and how would you address inflation?
We have to increase production. Production has to be increased in the sense that you have to widen the scope of production, especially in the agriculture field. We will have to ensure that we focus on greater and more efficient production. And also critical to all of this is the management of taxes in terms of importation, because you know most of the items that are imported, they carry taxes, and the tariffs and so on have to be paid obviously by the consumers it comes down to. So managing that will have to be very effective. The drop in electricity by way of the gas to energy project, which was conceptualized by the APNU AFC coalition, that project, when it comes on stream, is supposed to aid in reduction significantly, because we know everything depends on fossil fuel really that deals with prices, and the gas to energy project is not expected to is expected to replace or at least contribute significantly to reduce the use of fossil fuel. So all of those are areas of focus that I can tell you confidently we discussed at the level of the experience, expertise. I don't profess to be an economist. I don't profess to have the relevant and necessary economic skills to go further in depth, if I may use those terms. But I can tell you that it's well understood by the economists, it's well understood by the professionals, and we will have to be further guided by them. But the overarching idea and principle is what I've outlined to you.
What is the party's plan for Gaisuku? Would you go back to what they said in 2020, between 2015 and 2020 of right-sizing the industry? Would you go back to that white paper?
I think it was a matter of implementation that could have been handled better. I don't, again, profess to be the expert in this field, but I do believe that diversification in the operations is necessary. Now, if, for example, giving out the lands to the sugarcane workers, the people, the staff, and so on, because the biggest issue here is loss of job. That's the biggest issue. I think it's accepted that Gaisuku has contributed significantly to our country, was there when we needed it the most, and the Gaisuku played a significant role in our economy positively because of the functioning. You had markets and so on that were happening. It was a ripple effect that was positive for the society. But there has to come this time when you appreciate and accept that we have to move on. Moving on requires us doing it in such a way that we don't hurt who were benefiting. So I would say diversification into fishing, diversification into planting medicinal hemp. I would say diversification in the sense of moving to byproducts that are value-added products, and several other measures ought to be taken in place to solidify the right sizing concept. So we still have to produce the sugar, but we have to produce it at the economic stage of having a profit and not a loss. But we have to do it in such a way that we have to incorporate the changes that are necessary to bring ease to the persons who are expected to be affected. So, like Wales sugar industry, it was closed, but the PPP, they didn't reopen it. They didn't reopen it, but lands were actually given out to the people, the sugar workers, so that they could go into, whatever other means of utilizing the land to bring wealth to their pockets. And that's why I'm saying fishing, planting of hemp. I'm just assuming here, right? Because it's not something that I've spoken to. But that's how I would see it in my head, to bring ease to
the party said that it will create an environment in which 40,000 jobs are created over that 5-year period. What is the plan of action?
So, like I can tell you that this whole, first of all, let me make this very clear. Things that are working positively and done by the People's Progressive Party will be developed to further enhance the society. So, like the Because We Care cash grant, that stays. That's not going anywhere. We're in a position now to facilitate it. We're in a position now to make it better. We're in a position to increase it. We were not in that position in 2015. We're there now, so that stays. The hot meal program is one that was conceptualized by the APNU. It came into effect with the APNU. The PPP further developed it and expanded it. And we are saying that we will further develop it and further expand it to the point where we foresee 2 hot meals per child in schools. And so I'm saying all of that to tell you what is there will be, that is working, will be developed and enhanced for the better. We have, sorry, forgive me, the voice.
That's okay.
We have to move away from the practice that because it's a APNU thing, PPP ain't gonna do it, or because it's a PPP thing, APNU ain't gonna do it. Total nonsense. It's because of that kind of belief, Durban Park is how it is right now. Because had they developed Durban Park better, that could have been a massive playground for the communities around it and for people to come and do various different things. It could have been very, very state-of-the-art. But they chose to leave it like that for it to reach the state it's in, and then they will say, is the APNU just wicked? So I'm saying to you that it all comes down to ensuring that you are able to enhance what is there, build it stronger to benefit, and then you move in the direction of implementing your own aspects.
But how would the party create the 40,000 jobs?
So let me tell you about, like for example, this 10-day workers that the PPP brought into play. We want to give them the opportunity to go to technical institutions. We want to give them the opportunity to go to technical and vocational training centers to develop their skills. Not everybody is academically inclined to the point where they can read and write and know maths, English, social studies, science. From as early as Form 3 or level, level 9, a parent or a teacher is able to see a child's strength. You could have a child that is very good in drama, that could be a very good chef, that could be a very good mechanic, could be a very good sportsman or sportswoman, could be a very good tailor, seamstress, mason, electrician, plumber, name the technical skill. And harnessing that skill at a tender age to make them go into the respective field that they can go into is a way of upskilling. Well, skilling, upskilling, and to the point of reskilling our people so that they will be getting the opportunity to go into the respective fields. So the 10-day workers that currently exist, they will be given that first option. So the 10 days of work and the remainder of days is to get skilled, upskilled, and reskilled. As they metamorphose into the other phase of becoming permanent in whichever field they choose after being skilled, upskilled, and reskilled, the space opens to bring in more. And as you bring in more, you make this now into a cycle where you can deal with the literacy rate, because this program will help to alleviate the amount of children who have left secondary school without matriculating. So it gives them that avenue to better themselves. That is a program that we envisage and we would like to see happen. It requires more training centers. It requires upgrading the established training centers, focus on technical and vocational education, and it also requires having more places like School of Home Economics, Carnegie School of Home Economics, the Bertram Collins College of the Public Service, and those things got to come back on stream. So it becomes an avenue for young people to move their way forward.
And access employment. Now let's turn our attention to contracts. The party said that it will issue thousands of contracts to small contractors. My question is, how would you ensure that when these contracts are issued, that Guyanese taxpayers, they get value for the money?
Svetlana, it's evident that the 2015-2020 period, we did not have this kind of practice that is happening right now, where people are not evaluated based on merit. If people were evaluated based on merit, the Guyanese critic would not have gotten $800-something million to build the pump station over at Bell West. And several other contractors would not have gotten work that they did not have the necessary merit to do. So meritocracy plays a role in the evaluation, and that is how you're going to ensure it happens. But when it comes to small contractors, you have to start small before you reach somewhere. All of these roads you see around that is being given out to these small contractors, I would say to them that they will have to get another contract to build sidewalks alongside the roadways. None of these roads you see Edgil and Indar hurrying up to build these concrete roads, none of them carry sidewalks that caters for pedestrians. So that's immediately what I see as needed in terms of contract to go out to. So for me, the very contractors who built the roads ought to be given contracts to now complete it by making it more aesthetic. So it requires sidewalks, it requires beautification and enhancement. I have traveled relatively a lot. I've been to Australia, Sydney. I also went to India. In India I saw New Delhi, I saw various states, America, Canada, Trinidad, Barbados, Suriname, England. And when you travel to these countries, you see their way of life. You see their infrastructure. And you see how is it that you can implement similar and even better measures in your own country. And Guyana, my friend, has a very far way to go. Nowhere in the world that I've been to did I see these kinds of concrete roads where the edge, if you slip off the edge, you could break your ankle and probably fall into a drain or fall into a trench. It is so, I don't know how to describe it. There's no catering for pedestrians. We need to have our walkways and sidewalks where people could walk their dogs, people can exercise, people can have space to just take a stroll. And I'm saying that we have so much more to do infrastructure-wise to better this country, to develop it, to make it so much more beautiful. But all it calls for is prudent financial management, vision, and leaders that are committed to being servants.
I know I mentioned the small contractors, but we've seen issues where large contractors were awarded infrastructural projects, road projects, and months later those very roads develop issues. Would the party look toward maybe blacklisting of contractors?
A lot has to do not only with the contractors, a lot has to do also with them being facilitated to do these kind of things. So we have to strengthen the public service, especially the engineering core. The engineering core has to live up to their expectation and deliver better work. You see at the Public Accounts Committee how often I would chastise engineers for falsifying certificates of completion, for them not measuring the work, and contractors being overpaid, and them not going into the fields to ensure that everything happens. The contractors, they have to follow the engineer's guidance. So the engineer has to be there when they're pouring the concrete. The engineer has to be there to see when the strength test is done, to know if the concrete is going to withstand whatever strength it has to withstand. The engineer has to be there to see when the steel rods go down, to ensure it's good steel rods, it's tied in the right state, the digging out of the earth, if it's done to the required depth, and those kind of things. So when you chink, if there's a term I could use, when you chink on those kind of fundamentals, then you compromise the integrity of the project. So you may look good on the top, but at 2-3 morning, you see the cracks and you see the hollowness, you see the faults and so on. So a lot has to do with not only the contractors, but the engineers too. And then the contractors, I'm not saying the contractors are totally not there, they're there equally too, but it's a balance that has to be met, and people have to be held accountable for their actions. I'm proud of the projects that were done 2015 to 2020. I don't think you can point to any that was done 2015 to 2020 that has been not valuable to the society. And if you tell me Durban Park, I will tell you Durban Park was temporarily for that state because of the resources available at the time. It is not expected to be like that. It is supposed to be more modern. It was done to facilitate the flag raising exercise, as you know. And before Durban Park there, it was Durban Jungle. You would recall, big, tall bushes, trees, a forest was in the heart of the city. And that is what was replaced, and significant work had to be done there.
What would you say is the highlight of APNU's manifesto? What is the party's selling point aside from those fiscal measures? Everybody, they were going to increase pensions to 100,000. Yeah, cash transfer. I'm sure Guyanese welcome that. But what other than that you're offering?
I think the hallmark, if I'm to put it in 3 words, of the APNU manifesto, having read it from front to back, having participated in crafting it, having worked with a fantastic team. I'm not sure if the person would want me to call his name, but we had a fantastic team, and if I'm to put it in 3 words, the manifesto is all about putting people first. Everything in the manifesto seeks to put the ordinary, hardworking Guyanese first. And I think it is a fantastic document. It is a document that really empowers the society, and that is why on the campaign trail I tell people, you're not voting for Ganesh, Juretta, or Aubrey. You're voting for yourself, because you're voting to empower you, you're voting to benefit, you're voting for everything that is in that document that is coming back to you. So it's all about putting people first, and it's centered around the people-centered development strategy that was crafted by Aubrey Norton and his team. It's a fantastic document. A launch is expected very soon. Not sure if I'm allowed to tell you the date and time, but you will get that through the official means.
Now this week, just around 10,400 plus members of the discipline services would head to the polls, would cast their votes. Are you satisfied as of today that GCOM is ready to facilitate free and fair elections? Are you pleased? Is the party pleased with the electoral systems in place?
No, we are not pleased. We don't believe GCOM is doing a good job. GCOM has demonstrated their degree of incompetence. I think the chairperson for GCOM is outdated and has outlived her usefulness at GCOM. She should simply go home. The amount of headache we have had with GCOM so far, it is tremendous. And I think the PPP, if they want to be honest, they also will signal a similar concern. Can you imagine they gave out forms, for example, for proxies 2 days ago, On the form, they don't even have an area that caters for you to mention what is the purpose for the person to requesting a proxy. You got to write that down at the bottom, and you only know that because you called and said to them that, listen, you don't have this feature. They say, well, write it in at the bottom. Then they want telephone numbers to the people. You don't have a space for that. Now, all that they're doing is really frustrating the electoral process by not being transparent enough in terms of what is the information they require. When we were doing signatures for nominations day, in the middle of you acquiring the signature, they changed the form, but it didn't lengthen the days. That was another hiccup that they had. There's several other hiccups that our chief scrutineer may be better able to adumbrate on. But the point is, they are not ready, and we're to see how the disciplined service votes go. I would like to personally tell the members of the disciplined forces, and this is something we're very strong on. I think, and we believe so strongly, Clifton Hicken is an embarrassment to the Guyana Police Force. We have signaled that he has outlived his usefulness there. He is neither certified nor qualified to be the top cop, and day one of our administration will require him to go home. There's no doubt about that in our minds. He is frustrating the Guyana Police Force. Irfan Ali has tried his best to pat them by way of this promotion mechanism. We have no intentions of attacking that. Our police officers, if I could carry all of them, if we could carry all of them to the status of assistant commissioners, so be it. Our police are hardworking people. Our Guyana Defense Force, hardworking people. Our Guyana Fire Service, hardworking people. Our Guyana Prison Service, hardworking people. Every day they toil in the soil to give us a better Guyana. But the management at the top of the police force especially is so corrupt and so nasty that we need to fix that if we intend to address the police force in total. And I admire, I must say, these police officers, these traffic ranks that are on the road directing traffic. I personally believe they should be given an allowance for that. Because, yes, you're traffic police, but you didn't enter the force to be standing on the road early in the morning, 6 o'clock to 8, 9 o'clock, well dressed, and you got to start perspiring so early. Stay in that uniform and then go back on the road at 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock in the afternoon. They deserve compensation for that. And I'm saying that I don't think the police force is focusing on giving them the rightful compensation. Svetlana, if we change the manner in which our disciplined service forces operate, and we give them the respect they deserve, we give them the love, the compensation, and the authority of clean superiors, then you will find the subordinates holding dearly their love for Guyana more, and I think they will be able to give us more.
Are you concerned that with the close to 3,000 promotions handed out recently, that they're likely to lean towards the PPP as against any other party?
I don't think the discipline.
The police force. I'm referencing.
I don't think the police force has stupid officers. I don't think the police force has gullible officers. I think they all see it for what it is, and that is Irfan trying to take away the attention from Clifton Hicken being a poor commissioner and attempting to sway the officers' mind away from their demoralized state by giving them the promotion. But that promotion does not change the morale of the Guyana Police Force. It doesn't change the fact that Clifton Hicken is there. It doesn't change the corruption that has happened. It doesn't change. Nothing in terms of the structure and system changed. And I think the police men and women in uniform are trained to serve. They're trained to be loyal to Guyana and not an individual. They're trained to be loyal and protective of our country, not to an individual. And they are not going to allow themselves to be used by an individual. They're not going to allow themselves to be pawns to that individual. He was in the position to make it happen for them. I'm happy that they got their promotions and so on, but their love for country, their love for Guyana is more important than a fake love given to them by Irfan.
Now, you've expressed, and your party in general expressed, dissatisfaction with the management of the electoral processes by GCOM. The party is going to feel close to 3,000, if I'm correct, polling agents across, because there are almost 3,000 thereabout, or just on the polling places across the country. Are you comforted? Are you satisfied that, we're not pleased, but we have the ability to feel? Because some parties have said they are now collaborating and with each other to ensure that they have agents spread out. Do you think that's enough to guard against any attempt?
No, it's not enough. But we are a mass-based political party, and we will be fielding all polling stations with polling agents.
Your agents have been trained?
Yes, we have been engaged in that activity. Some regions are still ongoing with that activity, but a lot will be dependent on the presiding officers of the polling station to be professionals, to be unbiased, and to treat with respect everyone. On election day, the presiding officers have command of every polling station. The president for that day is just an ordinary human being that still holds the presidential power, so to speak, but he's not expected to use it on that day. Because that day is the day when you decide on whether you want to have the same president or you want another president. No ministers of government exist on that day. We are all going to be candidates representing our political parties. So I would say to presiding officers, to GCOM staff, and to polling agents, do not be intimidated by anyone. Do not allow yourselves to be used and abused, and hold firm on what is correct. Do the right thing for your own good. Do the right thing for your own sake. And give us an election that will reflect the true will of the Guyanese people, one that will reflect the real change that the people are fighting for, and don't give us an election that will cause chaos in our country.
Over 700,000 Guyanese, or persons who are eligible to vote, would be heading to the polls, or should be headed to the polls come September 1. Why should they vote for the APNU? I know you mentioned, we've spoken a reference to the PPP, but there are 4 other parties in addition to the PPP contesting these elections. Why should they vote for APNU?
Well, I would simply say to you, Svetlana, that APNU has a broader list of representation with clean individuals, accomplished, qualified, and experienced individuals in various fields. I would say that the APNU has presented a structure and policies that are strong. I would say that we have also managed to craft a manifesto that is in the best interest of the Guyanese people. It is all about putting the Guyanese people first under the agenda of a people-centered development strategy. I would say that the Guyanese people know that a vote for the APNU is a vote for themselves, empowering themselves and getting them back on the plateau of Guyana that is going to be stable, safe and secure, and promising for our children and the future generation. And it is all about fixing what has been broken. If you ask me, the blue team, for me, the blue has no clue. And for me, the red basically has demonstrated how corrupt they are. And we are not, as a people, able to say confidently that we're comfortable being a Guyanese because of what has been projected over the last 5 years. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that there weren't roads built, I'm not saying there's no harbor bridge. There are things there that you physically see that has been allowed to happen because of the increase in wealth. But the government has failed to strengthen systems, to strengthen structures, to protect us, to enhance our lives by uplifting the ordinary. And for that, the APNU, I think, presents the best plan of getting it done under a people-centered development strategy that puts you first.
Thank you so much for joining me on this edition of Sources. I wish you all the best on the campaign trail.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure being here.
And thank you for watching. With that, we've come to the end of this edition of Sources. Do join us at same time, same place next week, Sunday. Stay well.